Hi guys, let's get started on your lecture today. You are going to need to open your notes here for chapter 1. Today's the last day for chapter 1. We finally made it through. Woohoo! We are going to be on page 49 in your book, talking about early European explorers. So if you will recall, we were learning about navigators and how this is how they would navigate through the water to find out where they were going. So during the time that we are speaking about, 1400s, 1500s, their measurements were really off. They didn't have the knowledge that we have now. And so many of their exploration voyages didn't turn out as planned. So we also talked about a caravel. Let me get here in your notes. We talked about a caravel and navigating through the ship. So the caravel was an improved ship, and it had triangular sails, as you can see here. Triangular sails and square sails. So the triangular sails allowed the caravel to sail into the wind. So if the wind is blowing towards them, the triangular sails could made the boat go that way. The square sails carried the ship forward when the wind was blowing from behind. So the ship could go either way depending on the wind and depending on the sails it had. So this is a navigational tool used for sailing and on ships. And as I told you guys last week, I have no idea how it works. It looks super intricate, but that is what they use. So today we're going to be talking about good old Christopher Columbus. And I know you guys kind of remember him from last year. He wasn't the greatest guy. He thought that, there were so many riches and he wanted to get to Asia. So, enter Christopher Columbus. There he is, his hat, looking good. He was great, right? No, he was not great. So he was an Italian sailor. He thought that he could just find a quicker way to get to Asia. So the Europeans had known for a century that the earth is round. Columbus decided, instead of sailing around the bottom portion of Africa to get to Asia, let me find the map here. Where is it? Guys. Oh, well. So the bottom tip of Asia is how they were going. Oh, here we go. So they would go from Spain, and they'd follow this purple line. Eventually they followed the red line and they made it to Asia. Well, they didn't know that North America and South America were there. So Columbus thought, well, I'm just going to sail across the Atlantic Ocean and I'm going to hit Asia. He had no idea that these two continents were there. So they also made the mistake of thinking that the earth was a lot smaller than it was. So he relied on the writings of two people, Marco Polo and Paolo Toscanelli, totally wrong about the size of Asia. They claimed that Asia stretched farther from west to east than it really did. Also, Columbus underestimated the distance around the globe. He thought the earth was only 2/3 as large as it actually is. So he believed that the Atlantic Ocean must be really small, and the trip there would be super short. Right? Wrong, Columbus. So in 1483, Columbus asked the King of Portugal to finance a voyage across the Atlantic. The kings and queens always have this group of people who are advisors. They tell them, hey, this might be a good idea, this might not be a good idea. So the king's advisors argued that Columbus had miscalculated the distance to Asia. They reminded him of the progress that Portuguese explorers had made sailing down the bottom of Africa to look for Asia. So they were like, no, King, you should probably not finance his voyage. So Columbus turned to Portugal's rival, Spain. So at the time, Portugal and Spain did not get along. So Columbus says, oh, okay, Portugal, if you're not going to give me some money, I'm going to go ask Spain. Well, Spain's rulers were King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, and they liked his plan. They were all for sending Columbus on a voyage because they wanted some of that money. They wanted some of that rich Asian trade. And as long as they could send people there to, bring some of the riches back, they were all for it. Also, the Queen was a very devout Catholic, and Catholicism still exists today. There are still many people who follow the Catholic religion, so she was a very strong Catholic, and she welcomed the chance to spread Christianity. Yes, let's take Christianity across the globe, and we're going to convert everybody. But there were also reasons not to support Columbus. So first, a royal council had doubts that Columbus's calculations were wrong, and they advised the king and queen not to finance him. Also, the Spanish monarchs were in the middle of a war to drive out the Muslims out of Spain. They were like, you're not Christian, you need to get out of here. So they were in the middle of a war, and war takes what? Money. So also Christopher Columbus was asking for a huge payment for his services. So not only were they paying money for a war, but they had to pay Christopher Columbus for his voyages a high amount. Okay, so the years of waiting made Columbus determined that he is just going on this voyage and he's going to profit from it. So he demanded the high title of Admiral of the Ocean Sea. That's like Miss Cantwell saying, you know what? I am a fabulous teacher of history. I would like to be the Admiral of all social studies. I need this title. So he thought that he was just the greatest thing since sliced bread. And he also wanted to be named and have a title. And he wanted a percentage of anything that he brought back from Asia. So if he brought back 100 bags of pepper, then he's going to keep 10 of them. Okay? So he had a lot of high demands for somebody who had really bad calculations. He also expected to be made the ruler of all the lands that he found. So the king and queen are sending him to go explore these lands, but he's like, wait, I get to be in charge, I get to be the ruler. So after many negotiations, finally in January of 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. The Spanish conquered the last Muslim stronghold in Spain. So now, because there was no war, the Spanish monarchs, and a monarch is a king or a queen. If you go to Manzano, you are called the Manzano monarchs because I think the lion is the king. He has the crown. So now that they didn't have a war, they had money to pay for Columbus to go on this voyage. But they still kind of had this voice in the back of their mind going, this probably isn't a good idea, but we're just going to do it. So the advisors advised the king to change their minds and send Columbus on the trip. And so they were like, yay, it's happening. So when Miss Cantwell was younger, as I told you guys on Indigenous Peoples Day, they really celebrated Columbus. Oh, he discovered America, and he was this wonderful guy. And he was kind of a jerk. He was an awful person because greed took over. So he sailed on the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. And they left Spain. So here's Spain, this little yellow country here. And they sailed all the way across the Atlantic Ocean. So he's greedy, he wants a piece of the riches of Asia, he wants to have a title, and he's in charge, right? You can see where this is going, I hope. So, in the beginning, he had trouble finding a crew. He had trouble finding people who wanted to work for him. A respected local ship owner agreed to sign on as captain of the Pinta. So other crew members were like, oh, okay, well, if he signed on, then I guess we're okay to sign on too. So for 3 ships, they only had 90 men, and they had enough food and supplies for 1 whole year. So it's not like today's travel when you can hop on a plane and you can be somewhere in a couple of hours. It took weeks and months to sail across large bodies of water because they had very simple navigational tools and many of their measurements were way off. So they had enough food for 1 year. They had casks or little bottles of fresh water. They had firewood, and they had other necessities. So from this map, you can see the purple was the route of Diaz, and they turned around because they were like, we're not getting anywhere. But then Da Gama, remember, he was the first guy to go underneath the bottom of Africa and reached Asia. But these black lines, the blue lines, the green lines, and the navy line on page 51, these are all the voyages of Columbus. And every time they're like, oh, we're in Asia. They were not in Asia at all. As you can see, it's the Americas. So, the tiny fleet of wooden ships, these 3 ships, sailed off in August of 1492. They were relying on trade winds that blew towards the west to speed the ships across the ocean. So once on board, Columbus kept a daily log and a daily record of each day's sailing. He kept 2 logs. One he showed to his men, and one he kept totally secret. Columbus's secret log recorded the truth about the journey. So if you look at your notes here, let's review. A monarch is a king or a queen of a country, and the king and the queen of Spain wanted the riches of Asian trade, and they wanted to spread Christianity. The 3 ships were called the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. 90 men set sail with him. So here's a picture of his daily log. So this is giving false information. So some of his men saw this, oh yes, here's my daily log of what's happening. Everything is hunky-dory. We're all great. His secret log, he kept, it's like a diary. He talked about all the atrocities that he did. And so people who have translated these writings, this is how we figured out what Columbus was doing to the natives. And this is why there's so much backlash on why did we celebrate this guy for so long. Yes, he wasn't a nice guy at all, you guys. He was a big meanie pants. So by October the 10th, the men had lost both courage and confidence in their leader. They're just done. They're like, you know what? We left in August. It's October. We haven't seen any land. We've been at sea for almost 10 weeks. There's nothing here. There's nothing. So they thought they were going to starve on these ships. So they wanted to return home. They were like, Columbus, let's turn around. This is not working for us. So to avoid mutiny, mutiny is when the crew of your ship turns against their leader and they take over. So to avoid this, Columbus and the crew struck a bargain. The men agreed to sail on for 3 days. All right, Columbus, we're giving you 3 more days. Otherwise, we're turning back and we are going home. And Columbus is like, okay, 3 more days. 2 days later, a sailor on the Pinta called out, Tierra, tierra, which is land, land. So they finally reached the land. They landed on an island in the Caribbean Sea. Excuse me. So these guys had thought that they had reached the Indies in Southeast Asia where the spices were grown. And they could not have been more incorrect. So who they ran into were the Taino people. And Columbus mistakenly called them Indians because he thought he was in the Indies. So this is where the name Indians come from, because Columbus thought they were in the Indies. From here on out, Ms. Cantwell calls them the natives because I feel it's an inappropriate name. So when you hear me say natives instead of Indians, this is why. So Columbus named the island they landed on. It may have already had a name, but he named it anyways. He named it San Salvador, and after unfurling the royal banner and flags, he ordered his crew to bear witness that I was taking possession of this island for the king and queen. Here begins the times of when European explorers just land somewhere and they're like, you know what? This is a beautiful place. I'm going to take it for mine. So this is equal to me coming over to your house and walking in the front door and being like, wow, this is a beautiful home. I am going to take possession of this land for the king and queen. I am the admiral of all social studies, and this house is now mine. That would just be ridiculous. That's really greedy and it's really mean. And so this is what most of the explorers did during this time. So they were eager to reach the rich country of Japan, which he thought was nearby. So he took 6 or 7 Taino guides with him. And for a while, everybody got along. They did trade and they were like, oh, you know, they shared food and they tried to get to know one another. However, Columbus and his men saw that the Taino people had some gold and very precious objects such as pearls. And then, they're getting the dollar signs in their eyeballs. They want the riches. So this convinced Columbus that he had reached Asia. He decided to return home and he left 39 of his men behind. So even before Columbus left on this voyage, his men had really ticked off the Taino people because Columbus's men were stealing from them and they were committing violent acts against these natives. So by the time Columbus returned 10 months later, the Taino people had killed Columbus's men. They were done. They're like, you know what? We don't like you. You're rude. You're stealing. You're being rude to us. So they took him out. Firmly believing that he had found a new water out to Asia, he went ahead and wrote to Ferdinand and Isabella. So the rulers called him back to report on his voyage. So here's what happened. Columbus made those 3 voyages. You can see from the lines on the map I showed you. He never brought back any treasures. All he did was anger the Spanish rulers, Ferdinand and Isabella. He also failed to spread Christianity to the new people. The queen was really, really upset that Columbus had mistreated the natives and enslaved them. And I know that you guys, I hope you guys remember from New Mexico history last year, he demanded tribute. Okay, I need you to give me 10 gold pieces. This is your tribute to me, your leader. If they didn't give him enough gold, or he didn't like what they did, he would mistreat them. He would sometimes cut their hands off or injure them to the point where they would eventually die because he was angry and he had dollar signs in his eyeballs. And so the queen was really upset that he had done that to these native people. So after the 4th voyage, the queen and the king refused to give him any more help. They were like, nope, you're on your own. You have failed to do what we asked. So he died in 1506, still believing. He thought for sure he was in Asia, and he was bitter. And he was mad that he had not received the fame and fortune that he thought he deserved in his head. So in time, geographic knowledge, the geographic knowledge Columbus brought back, though, changed the way Europeans viewed the world. People thought, oh, he had reached continents we've never been to. Is there riches on all those continents? We got to go check it out. So this begins the exploration times from Europe and Africa because everyone's got those dollar signs in their eyeballs and they want a piece of it. So you guys need to make sure that you are copying your notes. These are this picture of his diary. So here's a depiction of when Columbus landed and met the Taino people. So as you can see, it's understood that the Taino people were very friendly at first, like, hey, there's new people, let's trade, we'll guide you around, we'll show you the area. And here's Columbus in all his glory with the cross, you know, for Catholicism and all these, you know, royal banners like, hey, we're here. Look at us. We are awesome. But their treatment of the Taino people was just atrocious and awful. And as time goes by, as you guys know today, people no longer really celebrate Columbus because he had, I highlighted it here in yellow, Columbus had dollar signs in his eyes and he wanted the gold that the natives had. So again, he failed to bring back riches. He failed to spread Christianity. So the king and the queen were like, nope, we're not supplying anything else. So because Columbus reached so many unknown continents, this sparks everyone else wanting to explore and go take over lands and claim them for their own. So this is the end of chapter 1. You guys make sure you have copied these notes down. I'm here if you have any questions. And that is the end of today's lecture.